All right, let's dive into one of the most chilling psychological horror stories ever written. E.T.A. Hoffmann's The Sandman. Now, this is not your average ghost story. It's a journey deep into paranoia, obsession, and that terrifying blurry line between what's real and what's all in your head. So the story kicks off with these frantic words from our main character, a young student named Nathaniel. He's writing this desperate letter, completely convinced that some sinister figure from his childhood has come back to haunt him. For him, this isn't just a bad feeling, it's a terrifying certainty that's about to tear his world apart.
To really get why Nathaniel is so terrified, we have to go back, way back, to his childhood. This is where a scary bedtime story gets twisted into a horrifying reality, one that's going to follow him for the rest of his life.
Okay, so you can see how all these things get tangled up in his young mind. First, his nurse tells him this awful story about a monster who rips out children's eyes. Then he discovers that the monster who visits his dad late at night is a real person, this creepy family acquaintance, Coppelius. When he gets caught spying, the guy literally threatens him about his eyes. And to top it all off, his father dies in a mysterious explosion right after one of Coppelius's visits. It's this sequence that forges this unbreakable link in his head between Coppelius and this monstrous eye-stealing evil. So fast forward a few years. Nathaniel's at university. He's trying to move on with his life. But then he thinks he sees Coppelius again. This time, the man is disguised as an optician named Giuseppe Coppola. And just like that, all that childhood paranoia comes rushing back, stronger than ever. Now, here's where it gets really interesting, because this puts him in direct conflict with his fiancée, Clara. She's the voice of reason. She's logical, she's grounded. While Nathaniel is absolutely convinced that this dark force is out to get him, Clara suggests that maybe, just maybe, the monster isn't real. She thinks it's a phantom of his own mind, that he's just projecting his childhood trauma onto some poor, innocent stranger. Well, Clara seems to calm him down for a bit, but then a fire breaks out in his building, and he has to move. And as luck, or maybe fate would have it, his new apartment is directly across from his physics professor, a reclusive guy named Spallanzani, and his very mysterious daughter, Olympia. At first, he doesn't think much of it. He just sees this woman across the way. Beautiful, but weirdly still. She just sits there for hours, her eyes looking kind of blank. But then, guess who shows up again? The optician, Coppola. And this time, he's not selling barometers. He's selling pretty eyes, pretty glasses. Nathaniel ends up buying a small spyglass from him. And this is the moment that changes everything. Because when he looks at Olympia through this lens, his whole perception of her is rewritten. That stiff, lifeless figure suddenly transforms. Her eyes seem to come alive with emotion, with life, all of it directed at him. He is immediately hooked, and this deep, all-consuming obsession begins. He is completely gone, just lost in this delusion. He goes to a ball at her house, and it's fascinating, because everyone else there is kind of creeped out by her. You know, her movements are weird and mechanical, her hand is ice cold, and no matter what anyone says to her, she just replies, ah. She's in that uncanny valley, almost human, but not quite. Nathaniel, though, he sees perfection. He thinks she's a deep soul who is the only one who truly gets him. He totally forgets all about his real fiancée, Clara. He's completely convinced he has found his soulmate, the one person in the universe who understands him. So Nathaniel decides he's going to propose to Olympia. He feels like he's finally stepped out of that dark shadow from his past and found his true destiny. But as he gets to her front door, he hears this horrible, furious argument coming from inside. It's two men, and they're shouting things like, "I made the eyes, and I made the clockwork." A terrible fear grips him, and he bursts into the room. And what he walks in on is just a complete nightmare. He sees his professor and Coppola physically fighting over Olympia's body, literally ripping her apart as they scream at each other. Coppola, who's the stronger of the two, manages to rip the figure away and runs off with it. And as he does, Nathaniel sees it, really sees it for the first time. Olympia's face has no eyes, just empty black sockets. She was never real. She's a lifeless doll. The object of his perfect love was just an object. And that collision between his fantasy and this horrific reality just completely shatters his mind. he descends into total madness. So after all that, he spends a long time in an asylum. But eventually, he awakens. He seems to be cured, his mind is clear, and he's back home with Clara and his family taking care of him. There's this sense of real peace. It really looks like the nightmare is over. I mean, they've even come into some money, and they're making plans to move to the country and start a new, happy life together. It seems like he's going to get his happy ending. For one last nice day in their old town, he and Clara decide to go climb the town hall tower to take in the view. So they're up at the top, just looking out over everything. And Clara makes this really innocent comment. She points to something in the distance and says, "Hey, look at that weird little bush. It almost looks like it's walking towards us." And Nathaniel, he just kind of mechanically reaches into his pocket. He pulls out that same spyglass, the one that started his whole obsession. But he doesn't look at the bush. He turns, and he looks through the lens at Clara. And in that one single moment, his sanity just shatters for good. Through that cursed piece of glass, the image of his beloved Clara is gone, replaced by the automaton. And his madness comes roaring back with a violent, murderous rage. And it all just unravels from there. He grabs Clara and tries to throw her off the tower, but luckily, her brother hears her screaming and saves her. Now Nathaniel is alone up there, and he looks down at the crowd that's gathered, and he sees him, Coppelius, the man who started all of this, smiling up at him, and yelling the optician's sales pitch, "Ah, pretty eyes!" Nathaniel leaps over the railing to his death. His nightmare has come full circle. So this story leaves us with this really haunting question, doesn't it? Was Nathaniel actually being hunted by some kind of supernatural evil this whole time? Or was he just the victim of his own broken mind, destroyed by a childhood trauma that he could never, ever escape? The story lets you decide where the real monster was hiding all along.